Hi, thanks for tuning into this video. My name is Lauryn Benedict, and I'm going to be talking about sex and species differences in vocal mimicry among companion parrots. I want to note that I will be giving this talk live during the ABS session, but I also wanted to make this video for anyone who can't tune in at that time. So I'll start by acknowledging my co-authors, all listed here, and then I'll jump right into some of our content. And the big questions that I'm interested in and that this project helps us get at is what factors really drive avian vocal mimicry abilities and what factors might be important for parrots in particular. And vocal mimicry is one aspect of potential complexity in signals. And of course, this is a communication session to do with signal complexity, so we're excited to be part of that. Among birds in particular, which is our study system, there are three groups that can learn songs or other vocalizations. The songbirds, passerines, which is what most of my research has focused on, so parrots are a little bit of a departure for me, but I'm learning. The hummingbirds, and then the parrots, which have these amazing vocal mimicry abilities, as we all know, because we are all aware that parrots talk. They mimic human language and human sounds. So knowing that, we felt that this group of companion parrots gives us a really kind of potentially very fruitful study system for understanding how certain factors might drive those vocal mimicry abilities and their complexity of communication. So for this project, we looked at four factors rather, species identity, sex, age, and social interactions. And how did we go about doing this? Well, we created a survey. We created a Google Forms survey where we asked people to report information about their companion parrots. If you are someone who filled out the survey, thank you. We absolutely appreciate this. We couldn't have done it without the community of parrot owners who gave us all of this fantastic data. The questions that we asked about vocal complexity really came down to understanding kind of what birds could do in terms of mimicking three different categories of human sounds, or at least anthropogenic sounds. First of all, mimicked sounds, something like a doorbell or a dog bark. Second of all, phrases, so language-based phrases, Polly wants a cracker, and then words within those phrases. And we, in a way, are thinking of phrases like the song of a bird and words sort of like the syllables that make up that song. We can understand the diversity of sounds that parrots can make. Okay, so we sent out the survey. We got lots of responses, which was fantastic. We had 898 responses for 78 different species, 19 of which we had at least 10 responses for. And we had a good sampling of males and females indicated here, as well as a pretty wide age range and a good diversity of parrots in a range of different social interactions. And when we talk about social interactions, we're really focused on social interactions with other parrots, and that's what went into our analyses. So I'm going to show you some kind of more quantitative analyses, but before I do that, I'll also mention that we asked one really fun question, which is just what are some of the words that your parrot uses? And we got a lot of responses to that. I'm showing you here a word cloud that includes all words that were mentioned at least 5 times in those responses. You can see that good is the most used word by parrots in our survey. You can also see, if you look closely, some 4-letter words and this one, which could be problematic. Okay, but back to our quantitative analyses. We were looking at how sex, age, and social interactions might predict those vocal mimicry repertoires. And we did this by running linear mixed models that all included species as well, species nested within genus as a random factor. So if we look first at species, that always had strong effects in all models. Parrots of different species have different numbers of words, phrases, and sounds that they mimic. And I'm actually not going to dwell on this slide because I want to get to some other things, but if you're watching the video, you can pause it and look closely here to see what you pull out of it. In particular, gray parrots have large repertoires, which is not surprising. Okay, so given those conclusions, we're just going to move kind of quickly to the next set of questions because this is a short talk, and really what I want to focus on is sex, age, and social interactions. Across our full data set, none of those fixed factors significantly predicted the sizes of repertoires for mimicry sounds, words, or phrases. So across all parrots, we're not seeing strong, consistent patterns related to sex, age, or social interactions. But we did have a few places where we had kind of more species-specific data that we found really interesting. And I'm particularly interested in sex and how sex shapes the vocalizations of birds and just animal signaling in general. So I'm going to focus now on some of the differences by sex. And the first thing that we noticed in particular that really jumped out at us is that if you look at all of the birds that were in our data set, we had an overabundance of males. And this could be because male parrots are more likely than females to mimic humans, or it could be because people are incorrectly sexing their parrots. Well, to get at this question, we actually had data in the survey about how they determined the sex of the parrots in question, and we then divided that into a group that we were very confident of the sex. So generally, this high sexing confidence group is birds that were sexed using DNA, and then medium and low confidence birds that typically were sexed by appearance or behavior or something else like that. And what you see here is that in these high sexing confidence birds, about 50% are male. In the medium and low confidence, something like 75% are male. And really, what we're taking away from that is that these are significantly different from 50%, and we think that they're probably errors. So we are concluding that lots of people are incorrectly sexing their parrots if they're not using DNA or egg laying or some other very telling behaviors to do it. But then again, we also saw some sex differences that we do think that were not just a result of sampling bias or mistake. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of those next. So if we look at these 3 species illustrated here, cockatiels in our data set were 86% male, overwhelmingly male. And they generally were sexed with pretty high confidence. A lot of people DNA sex their cockatiels. So in that case, males seem to be more likely than females to talk. However, when we compare the mimicry repertoire sizes of the males and the females, males don't have larger repertoires. So though they're more likely to talk, females who do talk are just as able to learn a wide range of different sounds, words, and phrases. In budgies, we also had an overabundance of males. We had lower sexing confidence there. Not everyone DNA sexes their budgies. But if we remove those low confidence birds from the data set and look just at the high sexing confidence birds, we find that males do have larger word and phrase repertoires. So males seem to be able to learn to mimic more human words and phrases than females. In blue and yellow macaws, we had an overabundance of females in the data set. Only 35% of our birds were male, so females are very likely to talk. And in this group, we had very high confidence in the sexes. And what we found when we compared repertoire sizes was that males did have significantly larger mimicry sound, word, and phrase repertoires. So females are very likely to talk, but males can learn a wider range of sounds. So what we're really kind of drawing as a conclusion here is that sex biases can occur multiple ways, both in the tendency to mimic and in the diversity of mimicked sounds. And we also did a couple of other analyses just looking at sex biases or sex differences in repertoire sizes. We had 9 significant differences across the well-sampled species. In 8 of those, males were the ones with the larger repertoires. So we're not drawing huge conclusions from that, but we think it's a starting point to start to look into particular species and what factors, particularly in their wild and natural habitats, might drive sex differences in vocal repertoires. So, what factors predict parrot vocal mimicry? Well, absolutely species identity, and then in more subtle ways, things like sex. And then we also have data on age and social interactions. If you're interested in those, please talk to me about it, and we'd love to explore that more. So with that, I want to thank everyone who was involved in the study, and I'm going to give you my contact information. Please get in touch. And if you're not watching this live and you are watching it before August 4th at 7:30 Eastern, I hope you'll join me in my office hours to talk about it. Thank you.